Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who may be attending one of our programs for the first time, I'd like to explain exactly what you're about to witness. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with historians, educators, filmmakers, authors, and a few people who are probably none of those things. But tonight, I'd like to introduce my oldest and quite possibly my most unusual colleague. Some psychologists insist he doesn't actually exist. Others maintain he's merely a figment of my imagination. Personally, I find those accusations both hurtful and remarkably well documented. Nevertheless, Professor Percival P. Quibble has been my trusted virtual colleague for many years. He has advised governments that never requested his advice. He has lectured at universities that later denied he had ever been there. He has written dozens of books, none of which have ever troubled the bestseller lists. His academic credentials are, by any objective standard, extraordinary. He holds 17 honorary doctorates from institutions of highly questionable existence. He is the founder and sole lifetime president of the Institute for Advanced Speculation. He served as distinguished professor of theoretical common sense until the department unanimously agreed there was no such thing. He has received countless awards, several of which he created himself. Most importantly, he is universally recognized, primarily by himself, as the world's foremost pseudo-intellectual. Now Professor Quibble has devoted the better part of 6 decades to studying subjects he doesn't entirely understand and explaining them to audiences who were perfectly happy before he started. This evening, he has graciously agreed to share his latest research on one of the most important topics of our time, artificial intelligence. Whether he understands it is, frankly, beside the point. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my virtual colleague, Professor Percival P. Quibble. Here he is with his discourse entitled Artificial Intelligence, Why We Shouldn't Panic Until the Toasters Start Holding Meetings.
Artificial intelligence, a fascinating subject. Although before discussing artificial intelligence, one must first understand intelligence. And before intelligence, one must understand artificiality. Now, artificiality comes from the Latin word artificialis, or perhaps it doesn't. Latin has become remarkably difficult to verify now that most Romans have stopped answering their mail. People ask me whether artificial intelligence is dangerous. That depends entirely upon the intelligence. Take my Uncle Stanley, perfectly natural, not a trace of artificial intelligence. Yet we never let him carve the Thanksgiving turkey after 1963. Technology wasn't responsible, geometry was. People assume machines are becoming smarter. Nonsense. They're becoming faster. There's an enormous difference. I once knew a fellow who could eat 37 hot dogs in 12 minutes. No one suggested he chair the philosophy department. Speed has always been overrated. Now, many people believe computers think. I disagree. Computers calculate. Thinking is entirely different. Thinking generally begins with uncertainty. Computers hate uncertainty. Academics, on the other hand, thrive on it. I spent 3 years proving a theory that I later disproved myself. That's called scholarship. If someone else disproves it, that's politics. Artificial intelligence is based upon algorithms. An algorithm, incidentally, was a Persian mathematician or a dance craze in Cleveland. I frequently confuse the two. In either case, they both involve complicated steps that nobody remembers. People tell me AI learns from enormous quantities of information. So do teenagers. Unfortunately, they learn most of it from TikTok. There was a time when children learned from encyclopedias. Do you remember encyclopedias? Heavy books parents bought to impress neighbors. No one actually read them except the salesman. Marvelous fellow. Sold my family 24 volumes. We only needed the letter B. My father was convinced we'd eventually work our way to Z. He was an optimist. Which reminds me, optimism is the real artificial intelligence. Every January 1st, millions of people believe they'll exercise regularly. No machine has ever made such an outrageous prediction. People say AI will eventually replace professors. Well, that's certainly possible. I've attended faculty meetings. Replacing professors would be one of the easier engineering projects. Besides, universities have been trying to eliminate thinking for years by assigning committees to study it. A committee is a remarkable invention. It's the only known device that can transform 6 intelligent people into one confused conclusion. Artificial intelligence could never duplicate that. It lacks the necessary bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is uniquely human. People ask whether I use AI. Certainly. I asked it to explain quantum mechanics. It replied, "I'm sorry, Professor. Nobody actually understands quantum mechanics." I found that refreshingly honest. Then it tried to sell me a premium subscription, which proves one thing beyond all doubt. Artificial intelligence has already mastered capitalism. Thank you.